Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you're used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, and I promise you that I'm not the only turkey that people will be talking about over the next couple of weeks. And because I don't live in Illinois or California, there will be more than two people talking about turkey where I am. What am I talking about? Let me bring on two people that aren't turkeys to talk about turkeys at some point in time while we deal with election turkeys. The first one is the person in the middle who is laughing because she may or may not have Thanksgiving dinner if her governor has anything to say about it. Kira Davis, editor-at-large, Red State. Happy almost Thanksgiving, maybe kind of, sort of, depending on what the governor has to say.
Yeah, maybe, Lenny. Here I am in California. Hi, by the way. And yeah, we apparently aren't going to be really celebrating Thanksgiving. You can, but only if you have your meal outside, and it can't be longer than 2 hours. Can't have more than 10 people represented by three families. And you can allow people to use your restroom, but you've got to sanitize it after each use. And then your Thanksgiving meal must be single servings, no buffet style. Oh, and no singing. But if you want to sing, you keep it below the range of a normal speaker. I mean, Jeff's shaking his head like this sounds crazy. And some of our viewers might think like I'm making a joke, but this is literally the Thanksgiving guidelines from Newsom.
So before I introduce Jeff, I'm going to remind people of several things. Number one, yeah, it may sound like you're joking, but it's still 2020. Don't tempt 2020 anymore. We have learned not to mess with 2020 in March. You all keep playing with 2020, and 2020 is going to 2020. Second of all, we've actually done a story about screaming in one's heart. And that was months ago. People thought that was a joke. And then we had to show the screenshots to show you that they were for real about that. And why were they serious about screaming in their hearts? Dare I say again, because 2020 is just going to outright 2020. Don't tempt 2020 to do any more 2020 stuff. I digress. A state where they're going to have Thanksgiving without masks, and they're going to go around with their peace on their side because they're rootin' tootin' Second Amendment shooting folks in the heart of Texas. Jeff Charles, all the way over there. What are you doing for Thanksgiving, especially considering that you are a native Californian that got the good sense to get out apparently?
I'm going to be celebrating the fact that I left California after what I just heard, because that's just ridiculous. I had heard about that before, but I mean, the thing about Texas, I mean, we've got some restrictions over here. It's not restriction free, but it's not nearly as bad as what's going on in California, Michigan, New York, and other places. So it's just depressing. I mean, it's like the left just finds ways to ruin everything.
Yeah, now instead of screaming inside our hearts, like that was the roller coaster story. In Japan, they asked people, get on the roller coaster, but scream inside your heart instead of out loud. Now in California, we have to Thanksgiving inside our hearts. By the way,
how are you going to enforce that though?
This is what I was about to say. Okay. I know of no one. Well, I shouldn't say no one. That's a very definitive statement. Oh my gosh, you guys, as I'm about to tell you about this, my good friend just texted me. She lives in LA. She was like, Newsom went to a birthday party? I'm irate. She is so mad. Oh, the struggle is real here. I know of a couple of people who are super fearful. They're still in like, I'm wearing my mask in my car phase. But for the most part, everybody I know is like, screw this guy. What the hell is he talking about? We're going to have Thanksgiving the way we want to have it. And by the way, as I've been saying all along, most people are abiding by some kind of modified rules for their social gatherings these days. The idea that a government doesn't tell us to do it, that people won't do it, that's ridiculous. People are taking the precautions that they feel are necessary. I have some friends who have agreed to take COVID tests, before the elderly members of the family come to their home. Or I know some people who have agreed to cut the big family dinner and maybe make it like a couple of nuclear families or whatever. Like, people are making their own adjustments. We don't need the government to tell us that we can sing at Thanksgiving, but it's got to be at a whisper level. I mean, this is the type of insanity that we're experiencing here in California. Everyone I know, in fact, if anything, this is driving people to have bigger parties, if you ask me.
And I want to touch upon that before we get to the election. We're talking about this, and we'll get a little bit more into Thanksgiving maybe because we're touching upon it now. But this kind of prompts this question, and Kira, I'm going to go back to you first, then you, Jeff, which is this. Because of the COVID fatigue, and I'm not talking about the actual physical symptoms, I'm talking about people being sick and tired of people giving them, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. 2 people around, 5 people around, you can kind of go to the gym with a mask on, but you also can't do these things. And we've been doing this for months. Hey, shut down the bars, you can open them back up. 25% capacity, 50% capacity, 10% capacity, shut them down. Because people are so sick of that, and then you're seeing the duplicity from people in charge. Again, we go back to Governor Whitmer's husband asking for access to a beach for Memorial Day weekend when they shut down Memorial Day weekend in Michigan. We saw this all across the country. People are trying to blame Trump for the spike in COVID cases coming back through the country again. But when you have people reacting to the back and forth you're seeing at the states and some of the insanity that you're hearing from Lori Lightfoot in Chicago and Newsom in California, what role is that playing in all this, Kira?
I think it's doing more harm than good. I think Trump, I mean, he did a little, Trump was on the scene for a minute today, and he was talking about Operation Warp Speed. And again, he reiterated the cure can't be worse than the disease. And in a way, the cure was worse than the disease, as we saw economic wise and also emotionally wise. But the other thing I don't think people accounted for is that the cure can be worse than the disease by just driving people to apathy. Because at some point when your emotions are getting battered around so much, you've got to turn something off in order to survive. So I feel like we are I live in California where, look, it's the left coast. Plenty of people are happy to have the government tell them what to do here. It's a way of life. And even those people are like, it's not that they don't want to do their parts. It's that they believed their governor when the governor said, you will kill people if you leave your home and socialize. And here's the governor last night at a freaking birthday party. Here is Lori Lightfoot out celebrating the supposedly new incoming administration. Here's Mayor Bowser in DC out celebrating, out getting caught at parties. I mean, the elite class, the Congress is having a freshman incoming dinner. You can't have your restaurant open in Washington, D.C., but in the rotunda, there will be an incoming freshman dinner for hundreds of incoming Congress members. And then they have the nerve to look at the American people and say, you're risking the life of your grandmother and everyone you love if you set foot outside your house, if you keep your business open, if you go to a bar, if you send your kid to school. It's the hypocrisy that Americans can't take. And to my mind, they're putting us in danger by not being reasonable about this. We did what we were asked, and now they need to return the favor. Open us up and let us take care of ourselves from here.
Jeff, what do you think? I'm kind of agreeing with Kira. I think that, people want to blame just one source, in part because he's a very easy target. He's going to be loud. He is in the bully pulpit. He is the president of the United States, and he likes attention. So it's very easy to give him credit or blame. But there's a whole lot of people in charge of things that have not done this right, even in November. We're now literally pretty much a full year into this. And look, the 10th Amendment allows us to have 50 different experiments going on. And a lot of people are failing their experiments, including the people we just mentioned, Jeff.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. The behavior of these leaders, it can only mean one of two things. Only one of two things. One, they were lying about this thing the whole time, and it wasn't nearly as bad as they were saying it was. Because if they're out partying with no masks on, which this isn't new. We've been saying this all throughout the year. So if they're out there partying, then that means either that they're lying about this whole thing, that it's not as dangerous as they're saying it is, and they just want to enact whatever power over us that they have, or it is as bad as they're saying it is, but they have a complete disregard for the safety of the people that look up to them as leaders. Because the thing is, they should be held to a higher standard. So if they're out there partying on camera with no masks on, that's going to encourage the people that they've been ordering around to do the same. They're going to follow what the leader does, especially in a state like California, like what Kira was saying. They like the government to tell them what to do. Well, what do they model? What are they modeling? They're modeling something that they said would get their grandmothers killed. So now they're placing people's lives in danger because they're doing exactly the opposite of what they're telling other people to do to promote safety. So, but that's the thing. That's the left's motto anyway. Do as we say, not as we do. But there's absolutely no way that their behavior shows that they have any kind of positive motivation to doing what they're doing. They're just, I don't know which it is. For some leaders, they may actually believe that it's that bad, but they just don't care if people die from it. Or there might be some leaders who think that it's not that bad, but they're just going to lie to us. There is no other option here.
I'm so glad you said that, Jeff, to break it down like that. Like, because this is what I like to do on my show, Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis, right? I take our talking points, I draw them out
to their logical conclusion.
That's right, but that's what Jeff just did, and I think, and that might sound like a simple thing, like what he just did, but it's something that other people are not doing. I think we need to present this as a reasonable equation. It's either this or it's that. It can't be anything other than that. So why don't you stop and think about it while you guys are out there, all the progressive left that has bought everything hook, line, and sinkers out there saying you're a murderer if you leave the house without your mask on. Okay, fine. Well, let's ask you then, what do you think about your government officials that you elected going to these parties, going to funerals? Which is it? It can only be one or the other. There's no valid excuse within the middle. And frankly, either one of those ideas is disturbing to me as a voter. And if I was a Democrat supporter, would be disturbing to me. So it's no wonder that a lot of Democrat voters have now actually stopped to think about exactly what it is their leaders are saying to them. Lori Lightfoot had the absolute nerve to tell the news that, hey, I had to go to that celebration. It was going to happen with or without me. I might as well just grab the mask and gone on down there. You know, it was going to happen anyway. I don't even know what to say.
Well, let me go to this, because as you said, on Friday, the president talked about Operation Warp Speed and the fact that we may actually have a vaccine that could be used for the most vulnerable coming up over the next several weeks, going into the next several months. And then maybe by April or May, we could start getting to the point of time where the country's inoculated from COVID-19. Interestingly enough, we also saw that Justice Alito made it a point to kind of say, listen, this pandemic has allowed us to witness a very interesting assault on constitutional rights. He called it, in essence, a stress test of constitutionality. The question becomes, Jeff, if Operation Warp Speed gets us the vaccine that we need to allow us to be safe from COVID-19, is that going to be enough to allow everyday Americans to be safe from the affronts that we have seen on constitutionality from the lockdowns and everything else over the course of 2020 because of COVID-19?
You know, I think in some places it might, because he was warning like after this whole thing passes, we need to take out these restrictions, do not put them back on again. I think that in some cases, like maybe in California, they're going to keep them on, because I don't think this is really about the virus. Because at a certain point, there's only so much you can do as far as restrictions go. I think Whitmer will try to find a way to keep those restrictions on even after the pandemic passes, because to them, this is about power. And a lot of people in those states will do like Kira was saying, and they'll just go along with what the government says. They always believe Big Brother. In other places, like say Texas or other states, I think that they'll remove them. I think they'll probably remove them before the whole thing completely passes. But I think at a certain point, the Democrats are going to come around and as far as the virus goes, because let's say like if Biden were to win the election, If he's 3 months into his term and more people are dying, what's the media going to do? They can't blame it on Trump anymore. And since they blamed every single death on Trump, and they blamed every single death on that president, if there's a new president, they have to do the same thing. So I think on the other hand, you're going to have people or people in the media, maybe even leadership, trying to downplay it, but I don't expect them to remove the restrictions.
Well, Karen, let me ask you this. Does it go back to, and Jeff kind of touched upon it briefly, does it go back to the economy? Because let's say the deaths don't necessarily go up, but the economy stagnates. I mean, we just saw another 600,000 jobs added from October, but we still have 10 million jobs that need to be replaced. If we're into June or July and it ends up being, President Biden saying, okay, I don't know how to get these jobs added back to the economy, is that going to be what it's going to finally take for the Democrats to take some of the restrictions that they put on for COVID and prior to that? Because people forget California and certain left-leaning states had a lot of regulations when it came to climate control. You have a Democratic governor in Pennsylvania that's been trying to put regulations on fracking, which created jobs for Western Pennsylvanians for years before COVID-19. Do you think that the type of assault that Justice Alito was referring to may wane if we could start going into the first half of 2021, the economy still sputtering along, improving, but not good enough, and people continue this fatigue that they've gotten all throughout 2020?
It is absolutely my theory and has been from day one that on January 21st, after Inauguration Day, in a Biden-Harris administration, all restrictions get lifted, COVID miraculously goes away, schools open, and we go back to business as usual, because there's a big bounce back that has been, right now it's being contained, right? It's being contained, but clearly, like, whenever the restrictions are lifted, people are rushing back into the economy. So the bounce back has been really impressive, but it's not been able to reach its full potential because we're still doing this back and forth, will we, won't we thing. But it's always been my belief that in a Biden administration, after Inauguration Day, we all go back to normal because they need a good economy to run on in 4 years. And it's going to take them 4 years to recover from this. So you can't run in 4 years on, we're now in a depression with, 50 million Americans on the dole. And like, you can't run on that in 4 years. Joe Biden knows. Joe Biden's not going to be alive in 4 years, but everybody in the Democrats know. Everyone on the left knows. I'd be sitting with one eye open, buddy.
Kara didn't even crack a smile when she said it. She just said it and
I'm so serious.
Right through that stop sign.
Yeah, I'm kind of out of laughs this week, to be honest, you guys. Like, I don't actually find this stuff really that enjoyable, and I'm worried that we're in for a tumultuous 4 years, a lot like the Carter years. Now, if we're lucky, we get a Reagan after the Carter years.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of out of laughs. I'm kind of sick of seeing these left-wing elitist politicians play with our lives. They're playing with people's lives because they're playing political games instead of letting this country work the way it was meant to work. So no, I don't think Joe Biden's going to be in charge in 4 years. I don't think he's ever going to really be in charge, period. Sometimes you get a leader that's just a figurehead, and it's the party that's in charge.
Well,
so this might be that time.
Interestingly enough, with the last Democratic president, and I put up the 2020 map just now, the last Democratic president was 30 years younger than Joe Biden is right now. He came into office with the political capital from being a history maker, and two things happened. Number one, he wasn't necessarily in charge. People say he was, but the truth of the matter is, I think that President Obama, the newly minted Obama, wanted to be that post-racial, post-partisan president, and I do truly believe that Majority Leader Reid and Nancy Pelosi and Rahm Emanuel told him, sit down, kid, you're new here, we got this. And that led to
I don't believe it.
And that led to number two. If you remember, in 2008, if you look at the map, North Carolina flipped from red to blue. In 2020, it's Georgia flipping from red to blue. You're worried about left-leaning politicians. Jeff, I'll go to you first. Kara, chime in. But what ended up happening literally 2 years after that history-making election, you had Republicans running amok in the elections at the state level with gubernatorial races, state assemblies, and they took over the House of Representatives and almost took over the Senate. And if you remember, that's also ushered in Scott Brown, who should not have won in Massachusetts ever, as well as Chris Christie and McDonnell and the others in all these different races. I don't see the gloom and doom for Republicans after 2020 that maybe some other conservatives do, Jeff.
No, I don't either. I think that depending on how Kamala Harris governs, I think that we stand a really good chance of taking back the House in 2022, which is, by the way, when I think that Joe Biden will step down. I think it'll be after the 2022 midterms. Now, and this is all assuming that the Republican Party plays its cards right and doesn't do anything stupid, because there's always still room for that. I mean, but I think overall, I think they'll do okay.
Party. So yeah, you can. Yeah, they've done a lot of missteps over the last 10 years. I still hear Christine O'Donnell telling me she's not a witch. But please continue.
well, now we're going to hear about some representative talking about QAnon. Well, then again, maybe not. I don't know what's going to happen with that whole movement. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that the GOP is in as dire straits as the left wishes it was and wants it to be. I think that internally, the Republican Party is going to go through some issues as far as determining the direction of the party going forward in the future. But I don't see that the Republican Party is in a really bad space. And I think a lot of people on the right make that mistake too, because we get so caught up in who the president is. And if we don't have the presidency, then everything is just nothing else matters. That's not really true. That's not true. I think we've made enough gains in this election to where the GOP will have a good position to start from in 2021.
Kara, what do you think? I mean, you sounded a little pessimistic, but now that I gave you a little bit of recent history, what do you think about 2022?
I don't disagree. Like, I understand what's happening on the House in the state legislatures. I do think that's a response to a lot of the draconian measures that the Democrat representatives have taken. But what I do know is that President Trump has done a lot in the last 4 years. There's a lot of executive orders that were meant to hopefully help the GOP catch up in the next 4 years. And now we're not going to have that. Some of those protections, some of the people that are going to be, I'm mostly worried about this PRO Act, to be honest, which is sitting in the Senate waiting to be ratified. And that'll kill independent contractor jobs like what we do. And I know I've been trying to sound the alarm bell on that. I've known it's been sitting in the House. Something like 67% of Americans have some kind of side job.
Yeah.
So it would kill every side job. I believe, I said last week, like, I believe that the voice of the American people always speaks eventually. And everything that you've said about what's going on in House races and in the district speaks to that, right? That's the American people having their say, no matter what shenanigans are going on at the federal level. But I do worry that that there will be an undoing of some things that we were hoping would be shored up within the next 4 years. But I think my other thing is that I'm not pleased with the games that are being played with our lives. To them, this is all games. They all go home to their mansions and they all go home to their house staff, and their kids will get into the best schools and they'll drive the best cars. They'll have the best health care. Everything about their lives will be cushy and set, GOP or Democrat. And then the rest of us are here having to deal with the very real consequences of the games they're playing so that they can win a House race here or get federal money from here. Or that's what I find really discouraging and what's really, frankly, pissing me off about left-wing politicians right now. So, but as for the future, I for sure believe, like, I'm down with you guys. I get it. Like, there's a reason why it's so funny how many Democrats are so mad. They're winning and they're still so angry that half the country voted red.
Well, there's two things. Number one, well, I'll get to them being mad. Jeff, do I dare risk saying that this is the moment where she should announce something based on her being mad, or should I just look at it and let it
I'm
go?
not running for governor.
I didn't say anything.
Her husband, Mr. Davis, is about to fly out to Pittsburgh
He
and
is.
have some words with you.
I didn't say anything. I just
want him to know that I have nothing to do with this.
I let it
marinate.
My husband does not want to be the first gentleman.
Okay,
He doesn't want to be the first gentleman.
I walked it there and I put it down. I didn't place it on the altar of the red and black conversation for this show. You all picked it up on your own. But I do have a question in regards to people being upset about winning and losing. If you had to choose between having Donald Trump, the guy on the left, in the picture anyway, versus having the guy on the right in the picture anyway, pointing at you, saying, you can take me, but you can have all the general assemblies across the country. You get to redraw all the congressional maps. You get to redraw all the legislative maps. You get to control the states, but I have the White House. Would you rather have that, if you're a conservative, for another 10 years perhaps, or have Donald Trump for 4 more years, but maybe the blue wave washes away gains from 2010 at the state and county level? What would you rather have, starting with you, Jeff?
Yeah, of course, starting with me. That's a tough one. Wow. I mean, what I would be concerned about if the left held both chambers of Congress with Trump in office as the president, I would be very worried about some Republicans going along with the Democratic agenda. And honestly, I would be worried about Trump going along with it too, because Trump likes to get things done. So if he feels like he's made a deal and they can put it to him that way, he might sign certain things into law. And that AB5, Kira, I'm very worried about it too. I am watching Georgia like a hawk, because I'm very much concerned about them having the Senate, because I know that that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
I don't think that Trump would sign a law like that, but if they were able to get enough Republicans on board, he might not be able to veto it. So on that hand, that would be my concern there. With Biden as president, but Republicans having control of the Senate and the House of Representatives, I mean, Biden would probably do a lot of damage through executive order. But in that situation, I think the Republicans would be more united against that agenda if they had that level of power. Again, it could still go the exact same way I'm saying. And Biden would love to sign a law like that into legislation. But it's very hard for me to choose one, to choose which one. I'd have to just flip a coin, I guess.
Well, interestingly, Kara, I'm going to get to you. Interestingly enough, if I had to choose between Biden or Obama acting more like Clinton once Republicans took over the Congress and starting to make some of the deals that Gingrich pushed through 25 years ago with Bill Clinton in there, I think Biden's more inclined to do that. And then if you go downstate as well and go down to the state level, Biden seems to have been more inclined to be the centrist, to go along and get stuff done than President Obama was, particularly the last 2 years where he talked about he has a phone and he has a pen.
Yeah, I think that I'd be perfectly fine with the Biden-Harris at the top and a country full of red legislatures. My problem with answering this question is that it's based on the idea that Biden didn't cheat. And I think Biden and the Democrats have been cheating like crazy. Not only that, but that there's been utter collusion between big tech, big pharmacy, big media, and big Democrat government to lead us all to where we are this very moment in this election process. To me, that has very dire and dark consequences moving forward. It either sets up a system for us where cheaters have to cheat to win, which will always be a loss for the American people, or we have just witnessed one of the darkest acts in American electoral politics, which also has some very dire consequences. So that is the problem I have. I guess, I don't care. I honestly don't care if President Trump is president for the next 4 years or Biden's president for the next 4 years. Guess what? Kira Davis still gets up every day and goes to work and pays her bills. I don't give a damn who's in the White House as to how I live my life. Well, I do give a damn about the future of our electoral process and what it means for Americans to be this distrustful of the greatest voting system in the world. That has dire consequences for me that I cannot abide by. And that is what I find so distasteful about the possibility of a Biden-Harris presidency. Not who they are, they're Democrats. They're going to be who they are. And guess what? Politics is cyclical. I've lived through Democrat presidents. I'll live through another one. That's not the point. The point is that we may have done irreparable damage to the relationship between Americans and the voting process and our government.
Well, two things. One, didn't Homeland Security say this was the most secure election ever? And this is Trump's Homeland Security office. And
Sure.
so if that's true, then at some point in time, we're going to have to deal with Biden, Harris in that administration anyway. And number two, it kind of goes to what you also said as well, which is we've lived through, and I say this all the time, particularly as African Americans, we have lived through worse. You know, look, you lived in Gary, Indiana. I lived on the south side of Chicago. Are you telling me that you haven't seen a little bit of funny business going on with any of the things going on in Gary, Indiana or Chicago? Happens.
Yeah, that's how I know what I'm looking at now. That's how I know what I'm looking at now, Lenny. That's why, Homeland Security, this is the most secure election. What else are they going to say? Half the people in Homeland Security aren't even Trump's people. What else are they going to say? I mean, I've been around Chicago, Lake County electoral politics long enough to know. I've seen it, you've seen it, and I've been heavily involved with California politics for over a decade now. And it's an open secret how those mail-in ballots get counted when somebody is behind. Everybody knows that a Republican candidate in California has to win enough to win the margin of cheating. That's why in primaries, when Mike Garcia won the California 25 seat, he won it very handily, but did not did not claim victory till the next day, because in California, you can't claim victory until you know you've beaten the margin of cheating. So I know there's cheating out there. I'll die on this hill. I'm not saying 70 million people cheated. I'm saying that there were key districts where Democrats knew that they were going to have to come up with votes. And they've been doing this long enough at the local level, uninhibited, for decades and decades in places like Chicago, in places like Boston, and places like California. So yeah, I do know about those politics, Lenny, and that's exactly how I know what I'm looking at right now.
Is there a way to be optimistic through this? I mean, that's probably the more poignant question for me, Jeff. Is there a way to be optimistic through this? America has been through dark days with elections, with policies, with racial tensions, with pandemics, which you put them all together and we call them 2020. Is there a way to be optimistic despite the divisiveness and the anger? And we've seen this anger in America for 5 straight years now, whether it was the type of candidates we got. The Democrats were not very happy with Hillary Clinton all the way through to her run. Then they were pissed when she lost. And then they were angry for 4 years about he's not my president. He's not my president. Well, you know what? Same thing I said about Barack Obama. If you're an American, that's your president, whether it's Barack H. Obama or Donald J. Trump. You're an American, that's your president. May not have voted for him. But there's got to be some type of optimism past this, because if there's not, this country's going to have a figurative civil war, if not a literal one, because we've literally seen the country basically split in half. I know that Joe Biden supposedly, allegedly will get 306 electoral votes if everything goes as if it's counted right now. At the same exact time, you could see the country literally split right down the middle on most issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think in most situations, there is a path to where there's a reason to be optimistic. And I think that even in this instance, and we've talked about this on the show, is there a reason for us to be optimistic where we move past this? I think we will. It's just a matter of how long it takes. I mean, when it comes to the election, and especially with what DHS said, I mean, everybody who's watching this knows that the government will lie to them on a regular basis, even if it's not Trump, even if it's somebody in Trump's administration, but not Trump himself. We know that they lie to us. Here's the thing. 131 sworn affidavits alleging fraudulent activity. 131 people made these statements knowing that if they're found to have been lying, they'll go to jail. 2,800 incident reports alleging fraudulent behavior as far as the polls go. There's absolutely no way that DHS or anybody else can tell me that every single one of those people is lying or mistaken. Now, I don't know if these fraudulent votes add up to enough that would give Biden the election. We'll find out that out with the courts. We'll see how much there was. But the fact that the integrity of our election has been undermined so severely. I mean, because in 2016, there was some voter fraud here and there, and that's usually how it goes. But it was just so egregious and in your face that this time, this election will be part of what divides us even more. But the thing is, in every election, there's some level of voter fraud. But in this one, it's usually not as in your face as this is. And that's what's different here. So if we can get past this to a point where we can have confidence in our elections, that things aren't being stolen, then that will help to heal the divide. But until then, it's going to be quite difficult.
Okay, so I'm going to risk my Chris Wallace moment here. I'm going to put that out there right now. People that are in the comment room, don't hate me. You two don't hate me. But 4 years ago, when people brought up Russia talking about this, we called them tinfoil hat crazy people that were just bitter because Hillary lost. Now that's
a totally different thing, Lenny. To say to say that a foreign country came in, placed some well-placed Twitter ads, and tricked all you stupid freaking morons out there who were going to vote for Hillary into voting for Donald Trump. That's something totally different than us knowing that boxes of ballots just show up when certain Democrats need them. Al Franken, that's how he got to Congress about a trunk full of ballots.
Absolutely.
Listen, my first experience as a voter here in the United States, the first election I could legally vote in was 2000.
Okay.
Bush Gore. And I, at the time, was a liberal. I was living in Gary, Indiana. Gary is almost 100% Black, and it's 100% the hood. Got up early, went to my polling place, walked in the door, 200 people there ready to vote. The machines go down, like instantly. The second the polls open, machines go down. Poll worker stands up on the chair. She says, "We're going to hand out manual ballots. So you can do a written ballot if you want. Here's the process to do it, or you can wait around for the machines to get fixed. If you're filling out the manual ballot, number 2 is the straight Democrat ticket." This is the poll worker at my poll saying this. Now, was she trying to cheat the election? No, I think she just assumed that because everybody here is Black, everybody must be a Democrat. Everybody must be here to vote Democrat, which I was at the time. Because I was a liberal, I didn't think that was inappropriate. But it's not just the election fraud where they're slipping ballots under doors. It's also the type of fraud where the Democrat Party encourages this type of ignorance, encourages and flouts the laws. That's absolutely, there should have been an observer there to prevent that from happening.
I've seen that. Look, I remember being in North Carolina, souls to the polls, which I don't mind early voting. I do mind this. You cannot take grandma past the line where you're not supposed to electioneer anymore, walk her up to the polls and tell grandma who to vote for. That's illegal. You can help grandma up to the polls. You can't tell her how to vote. I don't mind early voting. I saw that. The motor voter laws. I saw people come in with a driver's license and an electric bill, register the vote, and vote the same day. In a state where undocumented residents were allowed to get driver's licenses. So if you only need a driver's license and an electric bill and you can vote, doesn't matter if you're from Venezuela, Russia, Ukraine, or I'm sorry, Kira, Canada, and you're still voting in an election illegally. So I know
and you don't need any of those things here, Lenny, by the way. You can walk right up, give your name.
My point is, I don't even want to say I'm concerned. All I want to point out is we heard this from the left before. We're hearing it from the right now. For me, I've always talked about voter validation. I don't want voter suppression. I want Americans that are qualified to vote to be able to register to vote and vote. At the same time, there's something to be said about voter validation. Let's validate that you should be able to vote. 15, look, the whole push that we've seen in some cities to allow non-American citizens to vote is wrong. It's not your country. I used to work in Canada for 2-3 months at a time. I've done it over the course of many, many years ago. I wasn't allowed to vote in municipal elections. That'd be crazy. My son spent a semester in Paris. Was he Parisian all of a sudden and he can vote on their presidency? No. So I get it. I believe in voter validation. My concern is that we're hearing the same arguments from both sides, and we're not.
Okay, Lenny, but I'm intelligent enough. I'm a grown woman. I'm intelligent enough. I don't have to both sides everything. I'm not going to both sides this. I get it. Like, my whole podcast is dedicated to being able to find middle ground and to see the other side's position. So it's not like I'm an idiot. Like, I get it that okay, for 4 years they complained about cheating and now we are. But it's one thing to make up something out of nowhere.
Right.
All of a sudden the big bad Russian appears and now
and use the government to make up that narrative too.
Right. Now we're not talking about that. We're talking about American voters in an American election finding ballots where perhaps there were none, finding discrepancies in machines in counties that would have been very important to Trump for Trump to win. And on top of that, you're talking about all of the external cheating. I guess I'll use air quotes for that, cheating, by big tech banning important news stories at the last second, banning conservatives from talking but I don't think that I'm being disingenuous to point out that there's cheating here. And I think that an intelligent person can hold both these ideas in their mind and realize that one was patently ridiculous from the start, and we now know was planted by the Obama administration to jam up Trump for 4 years. And now we know why, because there was a larger plan. But we know that that was bogus. There's proof that that was bogus. But there's plenty of proof that there's voter fraud, as you and I, Lenny, just talked about, because we lived in one of the areas that is famous for voter fraud. So the idea that there's no voter fraud in this election just because the left has been bitching about it for 4 years, I don't accept that. Have considered that proposition, and I find it to be wanting.
So let me ask you this question then. Kira first, and then Jeff. If Donald Trump is not as Donald Trump has been, for example, Donald Trump doesn't go to Erie and say, before the pandemic, I wasn't coming to Erie, but now I'm on the rope, so I got to come to Erie, which basically insults the people of Erie who gave him Pennsylvania. If Donald Trump doesn't Donald Trump himself as much as he Donald Trumped himself over the last 2 months, despite everything we're saying, do you think he still wins the election anyway? Because Mo Kelly said it on this show. Mo Kelly said if Donald Trump wasn't Donald Trumping all the time, it's a walk-away election. Maybe Donald Trump wins 330 electoral votes. So despite everything we're saying,
yes,
do you think that Donald Trump, if he doesn't Donald Trump himself so much, wins anyway?
Mm-hmm.
I do too. What about you, Jeff?
I would say yes. I mean, and people are going to get mad at me, but here's the thing. Yes, there is cheating going on, but if Donald Trump wasn't being who he is sometimes, he would have won by enough to where that cheating wouldn't have even mattered. It would have he would have had such a lead that there would have even been a question. So I think this is an area where we just need to acknowledge that there are things that Trump didn't do right, and not just him, the people around him, the GOP in supporting him. I think there were missteps there too. I'm not going to blame it all on Trump, but as far as losing the presidency, this is where the party that talks about personal responsibility needs to take some personal responsibility and acknowledge that, yes, we had wins down ballot, but why did we lose the presidency?
One final thing, because I'm going to get back to Turkey before Kira rips my head off like Mike Tyson used to do with pigeons.
You're always like, guys, listen, red and black listeners, you're always going to get it straight from, this is why this show is great. You're always going to get it straight from us. We don't got to walk in lockstep just because we all work at the same place and share, the same descriptor. So, yeah.
Kira feels guilty now. That's why she said that.
I don't feel good. I don't have any guilty feelings about anything. Don't even get me started again, Lenny. Wrap this up. Ugh.
Is Christmas going to be just as bad as this Thanksgiving when it comes to these shutdowns? Let's ask that question before we get out of here. Real quick, Kira first. If Thanksgiving goes as Thanksgiving goes, if Aunt Lori has the Thanksgiving she wants, is it going to be the same way for Christmas too?
Yeah. It'll be that way till Inauguration Day, and then COVID will cease to exist. That's my prediction.
Jeff, you?
Yep, I think it'll be the same. I think it'll be states like California putting in a lot of restrictions. And then I think there's going to be a lot of people who say, go F yourself. We're going to do our Christmas and Thanksgiving the way we want.
Already happening here in CA.
Yep.
Kira, it's time for us to go. And I had a chance to just listen to you rip my head off. I'm going to attack the back on my neck while you pitch your podcast.
Please go get your wife to sew that up.
Yes, exactly.
You can listen to my podcast, Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. Available wherever you find your podcast. This week's episode, you may find ironic, is titled Don't Become What You Hate. So you should listen to that one. Also, what else do I want to say? Oh, you can find me over at Red State and find me over at Twitter at Real Kira Davis. A lot of y'all are moving over to Parler, so I'm just Kira Davis on Parler if you want to come check me out there. And I am on Facebook, but I got to tell you, Facebook has been insanely restrictive lately, and I've been getting almost no engagement on my public page, and I'm like the least controversial person in the conservative.
I couldn't guess why.
I've been squashed, so I don't do much over there anymore. But yeah, those are the places you can find me, and then of course here with my guys at Red and Black.
Mr. Charles, please go while I try to go find my face, since it was just cracked over the last couple of minutes with Kira. Go.
Yes, you could check out my podcast and YouTube channel at Breaking Conservatarian on YouTube. Next week, I'm committing to doing my first audio only. I've been trying, but I haven't succeeded. Next week I am. But I do have some cool interviews coming up on the YouTube channel. You can always read my stuff at redstate.com and Liberty Nation. You can get me on Twitter next week at Jeff on the Right, because I am suspended because Twitter hates conservatives. And I'm also on Parler at Jeff on the Right.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah, Jeff got suspended.
We waited until the end of the show for you to break that. Mr. Breaking Conservatarian doesn't break any news at the beginning of Red and Black.
I appealed the decision and they upheld it, so I'm going to be letting them have it. Like, it was ridiculous. Basically, in a nutshell, I was making fun of people who call Black conservatives Uncle Tom and Coon. I wasn't calling anybody those words. I was making fun of people that do. It was clearly satire. I wrote an article about it, and I put the tweet that I put in that article. I can vouch for it. And they came back and said, no, we're upholding this. And I'm like, okay, you guys know what you're doing now. So I can't say that it was the algorithm. I gave you the chance. So yeah, now I'm going to come after them.
You know what that means, right? That means your satire was rather effective if they upheld the appeal. Because if you were not really good at it, they would let you trip all over yourself.
Yep.
And leave it out there. But because you are who you are, and I can attest that you're really, really good at the satire and smart, because satire needs intelligence.
He gave you air quotes on smart.
Well, you're still the smart one on here, Kira. So you're the smart one. He's the smart one.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure that I differentiate between the two of you, but you both know I love you very, very, very much. And listen, you all need to check them out. You need to follow them, because they are thought leaders that genuinely care about this country, as do I. You can find my stuff every Sunday on Red State as well. We're going to be critical of each other. We're going to be critical of the conservative movement. We're going to be critical of America. But the number one thing you'll never be able to criticize is our love for this country and our love for justice in this country and doing the right thing and extolling the American way of life and the American dream. So continue to follow us here on Red and Black. Continue to follow them on Red State as well as with me. We will catch up to you next week, where we will probably talk a little bit more turkey, and Kira will rue the fact that she lives in California and probably won't have as many people over her house for turkey, and Jeff will laugh. In the
No,
meanwhile,
I'm inviting everybody. If you're watching this, you're invited. Come to Southern California for Thanksgiving dinner.
you know what she's gonna do when she clinks the glass. She's gonna say she has an announcement at that dinner.
Oh,
That's why
God.
she's inviting many people as she can.
No, then I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, she probably will do that. We're leaving. We'll talk to you soon. TCNGB, take care. God bless. Peace.